Okay, we in the anthology A Season to Remember, we're following Catherine's story. It's Ava Stone's story, My Lord Hercules. And she's going to read from it now, and we'll have Jerica, who's traveled all the way from Florida. Yay, Jerica, nice to meet you. She'll be rounding us out for the evening. But here's Ava. Jazz hands.
The cheerleaders in the back row.
Nope.
I can do sororities and that.
Were you a cheerleader too?
No, I'm not sorority.
Just that back row.
Oh, I was easy. I wasn't stupid.
How am I supposed to follow that?
I don't have fun videotape.
I was a cheerleader,
Say
Derek.
penis. That's what
Where's
she's
my point?
I wasn't. I was in the parking lot.
Okay, so the lead up to my story. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes? You can hear me? Okay, spirit fingers mean yes. Okay. So my story is Miranda, who is Callista's younger sister, one of her younger sisters, and she is one of the more spitfire-ish characters I've written. One of her best friend is missing, and she's pretty obsessed with finding her. And so the night before this story, where I'm going to read here, takes place, she's actually snuck into a gaming hell dressed as a man, trying to track down the guy that she thinks is responsible for her friend's disappearance, and she's pretty dead set on getting answers. But there was a fellow in the gaming hell, who, I know I hate saying that, that's true, who recognized her as being a woman. He didn't know who she was, but he escorted her out, and ever since then he's been obsessed with her because he was quite taken. So he has come to call on her the next day, which that's where this begins. Then, in the doorway, a lovely vision in green appeared, and Harry nearly choked on his tea. He sprang to his feet, and he could only gape at the beauty who stood just inside the threshold. There was something to be said about swooped bodices. Her unbound hair, cravat, and waistcoat the night before had well hidden Miranda's charms from his view. Dear God, he missed so much. What he wouldn't give to be alone with her back in that hat right now. He wouldn't care if she told him her name or not. In fact, he would do everything in his power to make her forget her name altogether. Miss Miranda, his voice came out, sounding like a croak. Dear God, he's like a green lad of 15. My lord, she returned, stressing that last for some reason. What a surprise to see you. Was it? She had to know he'd seek her out. Harry's gaze swept across her form, drinking her in. Miranda's dark tresses were piled high on her head, revealing a graceful neck. How the devil had Harry let her escape last night without stealing a kiss first? Without tasting her pretty olive skin? Lady Marston cleared her throat. Miranda, Lord Harrison tells me that we should expect an invitation from Lord and Lady St. Austell to attend their ball tomorrow evening. Isn't that nice? My sister, Harry clarified, glad to have discovered that his voice had returned to its usual timbre. What in the world was wrong with him? In all of his years, he had never been so flummoxed over a mere girl, not once. How quite disconcerting to suddenly find that he was no longer in complete control of his thoughts. The one who isn't harebrained? Miranda's pretty hazel eyes twinkled as they landed on him. Harry smiled back. I've only got the one. Miranda heaved a sigh. How generous of her, she said. However, I believe we are busy tomorrow night, aren't we, Louisa?
See? Told you.
Right. Busy gaining entrances to more gaming hells, he wondered, or getting herself into an even worse predicament. The girl needed to keep her. That was just rude.
Obviously, not a Regency hero.
Exactly. Loud. Or getting herself into an even worse predicament. The girl needed to keep her, and clearly Marston was too busy for the job. Before the Viscountess could respond, another dark-haired beauty scrambled into the room as though she'd been listening in the corridor and was afraid things weren't going to go her way. A ball? At St. Austen's house? She nearly danced on her toes. Oh, please say we can, Louisa. Lady Marston glanced from the sister and then to Harry. She nodded in agreement. We'll look forward to seeing you there, Lord Harrison. Thank God for the sister, whichever one she was. The chit had just become Harry's favorite Bartlett. Well, other than Miranda, of course. I know, it's on video, too. You got the book? I will just delete it.
No people.
Hey.
It's on everywhere now. I promise not to tweet it. Yeah.
Okay. she'd now become his favorite Bartlett, which, other than Miranda, of course. I'm certain Lady St. Austell will be thrilled to make everyone's acquaintance, he said. Then he flashed his most charming grin at Lady Marston and said, I had hoped to convince Miss Miranda to join me in my phaeton in the park today. The Viscountess shot her sister-in-law a look and replied, well, then you should ask her, my lord. But Miranda would most likely say no, just as she tried to get out of Pippa's ball. Harry had to outwit her at every turn last night in order to get information out of her. Fortunately, his mind had been functioning properly then, which was quite surprising, all things considered, as he'd been suitably foxed at the time. Harry returned his attention to the exotic girl who captured his interest the very first moment he had seen her. Perhaps a bit of bravado would help his cause. After all, it had never failed him in the past. What do you say, Miss Miranda? We have much discussed, do we not? Panic flashed in her eyes, but it was gone a moment later. She smiled tightly, then nodded her acceptance. A ride in the park sounds lovely. Good heavens, a ride in the park with her Hercules. Miranda couldn't keep her heart from fluttering, which was more than disloyal of her. She shouldn't be batting her eyes at Harrison Casemore. She should be seeking out ways to get that nefarious Stallbridge to tell her what he'd done with Tessie. Smile, Lord Harrison ordered as he directed his gaze down Curzon Street, or you'll have all of Mayfair thinking I've abducted you. Miranda cast him a sidelong glance. He truly was a magnificent specimen as far as the male of the species went, but she couldn't let herself get distracted by his impressive build or his clear green eyes. Haven't you? You did agree to come along with me, he said, his gaze focused on the traffic before them. Because you didn't give me a choice. Then she mocked his baritone voice. We have much to discuss, do we not?
Did you get that?
Yes, we did.
That's how she sounded. Beside her, the Herculean gentleman chuckled. You are a spitfire, Miss Miranda. Then he chanced to glance in her direction. Would you like to drive? Drive? The question completely unarmed her. He let her drive his bays? Devlin would have an I can't say it.
Apoplexy.
That's what he would have.
Pardon?
If he knew. I beg your pardon? Lord Harrison slid slightly closer to her on the bench until his hard, muscled leg touched Miranda's. Tingles raced across her skin at the contact. Good heavens, he could jumble her mind. For a girl who dons trousers, I figured you ought to be adept at driving cattle, too. His deep voice floated around her like an embrace. The fluttering in her heart increased tenfold. No one had ever had such an effect on her, and no one had ever offered her such a thing, not even Simon, God rest his soul. I've never handled the ribbons before, she admitted, before she thought the better of it. What if he took back his offer? There's nothing to it, my dear. He moved the driving reins closer toward her. Just like riding. You do know how to ride, do you not? Of course you knew how to ride. What a ridiculous question. Before I was walking, of course, a brilliant smile flashed on his face. Why does that not surprise me? He slightly jiggled the reins before her. Here you go. Don't pull too hard, but don't give the ribbons too much play either. Miranda gulped. Devlin would flay her alive if he found out. But then when might she get another chance like this? She heaved a steadying sigh and then took the reins in her hands. Perfect, Lord Harrison gushed. Like you've been driving all your life. It's been all of 10 seconds. He laughed once more. You do make it quite difficult for a fellow to compliment you. Do you know that? Did she? Miranda glanced up to his smoldering gaze to find his smoldering green gaze leveled on her. Watch the road, my dear. A bit lightheaded, Miranda turned her attention to the other conveyances and riders in front of them as they approached Park Lane. Right there, he pointed to a grand tone, is St. Austell House, number 12. I'd hate for you to lose your way tomorrow. Miranda snorted. After Penny's performance, I don't believe there will be any way I could possibly get out of attending that function, my lord. Then I shall have to thank Penny profusely. Miranda couldn't help the smile that escaped her. He really was very charming for all that he had managed her ever since their paths had first crossed. And why do you want me to attend your sister's ball? So I can see you in a pretty gown. Do save me a waltz. His hand brushed her elbow. Lead them to the right, my dear. Miranda pulled the reins slightly to the right and grinned when the phaeton made a smooth turn on the Park Lane. I did it! I never had any doubts, he drawled. Now slow down just a bit so we can get across the street. He gestured to the park entrance up ahead on the left. We'll go right through there. Miranda followed his instructions, moving back slightly on the reins until it was safe for them to turn onto the park. What a heady feeling to be in control of the phaeton. She had never even contemplated driving before. What other excitements was she missing out on? You aren't like any other girl I've met. The statement jerked Miranda back to the present, and she turned her head to look at his lordship. The intensity of his gaze stole her breath, and she simply gaped at him. Do watch where we're going, Miranda. Oh! She turned her attention once back to the path in front of them. That was the hardest part about driving, the looking ahead part. Lord Harrison leaned back on the bench and draped his arm on the back of her seat. Heat seemed to roll off in the waves, warming her thoroughly. Quite shy for a chit who frequents gaming hells. Miranda kept her eye on the path this time, glad she didn't have to look at him for fear that he would see her blush even despite her unfortunate coloring. I don't frequent them. No, humor laced his voice. Blast him. No, she returned tartly. Last night was my first hell. And what would make you brave such a place in disguise all alone? Miranda shook her head. I don't owe you an explanation, my lord. His arm along the back of her seat brushed against her shoulders and his hands held on her arm. Whatever excitement you're searching for, I'm certain I can provide it for you. Whether it's starting my faith or something else. There's no need for you to put yourself in a dangerous spot again. I'm not looking for danger or excitement, Lord Harrison. Just answers. Just the truth about her, Tessie, and she would go wherever that mission took her, no matter how dangerous.